Hello and welcome back to our Commodore Amiga 3000 series, in which we're trying to coax a machine that I've been lusting after for many years into perfect working order so that we can induct it into the museum here for all to enjoy. Now today was supposed to be a really simple episode in which we got a monitor working, which we started on in the last episode, so go and watch that if you haven't already done so, and I get to test drive the machine and show you what it's all about. Didn't quite work out that way. Let's see what happened. Last time you saw this system, I'd cleaned up the keyboard and the machine itself, and Holly was working on the rare Commodore Ranger monitor, a dual sync display that wasn't working in 31 kHz mode. We were just waiting for some parts to arrive to finish it off, in theory, and then I'd take it for a test drive as I mentioned and give you my impressions. Well, here is that monitor working in the last episode in 15 kHz mode, but we really want that other mode to work, which is where the 3000 scan doubler comes in and puts out a scan doubled image. I'm pleased to say the parts have arrived that we were waiting for in the last episode, so let's see what's been going on with Holly.
Main filtering caps. Changed? Yep, it's a standard. Filtering cap to drive the relays. And then this is the sense circuit. Sense, coming back from this chip. That one had gone short. These been recapped.
What are they?
These are filtering caps again. And the same here is the high voltage filtering caps, or 50 volt ones. The really important one there, where is it? There's a red dot somewhere. Where did I put the red dot? There it is. That one.
What's that?
Guess what's down there? What were we doing last night?
Oh, the sink.
Yeah.
And so, having identified what seemed to be the most relevant parts to replace, in addition to the sync chip and caps that I replaced in the last episode, we fired it up for testing again. First in 15 kHz mode, where we now seem to have colour issues, so we've introduced a new problem here. And then in 31 kHz mode, where the picture does now sync, so that's some progress. The picture size obviously has to be adjusted, but we're just pleased to get an image at this stage. However, the colours all seem a little odd in this mode too. It's a big step forward to get the sync working, but it's a step back with those colour issues. Now this could be because the new caps are working properly and the monitor had been adjusted previously to worsening caps. So we used a test image to adjust everything, give it all a little tweak, and you can see a green tinge covers the screen, with some flickering when we play with the controls.
They're all in centre right now.
But I think just give them a little twiddle to see if it flicks it back.
Okay, cool.
If there's a sort of dry joint or something there.
Really? Yeah, the green one was doing that, so that's that one there. So that's high, that's low.
Oh, I had a moment of purple. It flicks back to green.
So we've still
No, I've got no green.
Yeah, this part is
There was a moment where it looked right.
This is the story of a man named John, his loving wife Mary and her broken clock. It needs new electronics to make it tick-tock, but poor John doesn't know where to start things off. Mary knows just what to say. Talk to the people at PCBWay. PCBWay.com is the place to order your PCBs, get help with electronic design, CNC milling or 3D printing for all of your projects. Check out PCBWay.com and don't forget their brilliant shared project section to easily purchase retro goodies. No wonder Jock looks so smug. PCBWay.com. This behaviour would suggest bad joints or pots, so we're just going to reflow the joints now to see if it can make a difference.
out.
Perfect.
Honestly.
Perfect. Okay, just needed me to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
You're in front of the camera. You're in front of the camera again. Yay!
Yay, it's all looking good, right? And we had reason to celebrate. With a few more tweaks, we were ready to reassemble it and put it on the Amiga, all going according to plan.
Yeah.
That's bang on. That's the middle.
Cool. Yeah.
That's a little bit.
Yeah.
Now I've got scope to take that right down.
Lovely.
And right up. So.
Yeah.
I took the opportunity to clean the monitor case inside and out to get it all looking nice. It's a grimy old thing, and I've been using something called The Pink Stuff, that's the brand name, for some of the cleaning recently, and with good results. It's a very slightly abrasive cleaner, not dissimilar to some Cif or using a bit of baking soda when you clean, and it's come up about as well as we can hope. And we had some great news as well, thanks to a viewer who's fixed us up with a 3000 mouse, and not just any mouse. It belonged to someone who worked at Industrial Light and Magic, a little bit of movie magic for the setup, and this mouse was nicknamed the Pregnant Mouse. It is an official Commodore mouse for the 3000. I can see in the manual early 3000s came with the tank mouse, and then this became the standard, and then there was also a 3-button version of the Pregnant Mouse. If you want one of those, the rare 3-button version for the Unix version of the Amiga 3000, there's one on eBay right now for £500. And another viewer also provided a great tip. Here I am testing the 15 and 31 kHz output on the Amiga simultaneously, and in the last episode I had some wibbly lines on the LCD. But it turns out there's a pot in the little hole here on the back next to the switch to enable the scan doubler, and you pointed out that by adjusting that we can clear up those wibbly lines, so thank you for that tip. So that's it, the Amiga's clean, the Amiga's ready to go, the monitor's working. Let's bring it up into the big box computer area of the museum here and give it a go. Not quite. This is where things get interesting. With the Ranger monitor now on the Amiga, we run into our next problem, which I first noticed in Scala, which is a bit like PowerPoint. When the slideshow ran in an interlaced mode, the image went haywire. It's not supposed to look like that. I could also recreate that problem in Vista Pro 3, which uses an interlaced display mode for its interface. Exactly what the scan doubler is designed to handle and eliminate flicker from, but it's just a big old mess. Of course, my first instinct was, it's the monitor playing up again, but when I switched back to the LCD to test that, it became clear that this isn't a monitor problem, it's the Amiga itself with issues. And we didn't spot this before because we hadn't tried interlaced mode. Damn. So what could be the cause of this? It only happens in interlaced mode with the scan doubler enabled, so it's something to do with that part of the motherboard where the amber scan doubling chip is, and the most likely culprit will be one of these 3 Oki chips. These are 256K memory chips which act as the buffer in the process of converting the video signal from an interlaced into a progressive one. Hopefully that's the case and it's not the rare amber chip itself because, well, they're like gold dust to get hold of. But as the amber is socketed, there's no harm in giving that socket a clean because I would kick myself if I didn't check the simple things first. So we did that, there's a nice clean socket, and it made no difference, but at least we've eliminated that. Let's desolder the Oki chips now and then socket them. I found the best way to work on this board was just with good old solder braid and capillary action to clear those holes. I didn't have much luck with the desoldering gun and I didn't want to overwork things, but this just worked fine. Nearly there, with the exception of a stubborn ground hole. They're always the worst to clear, I find. And then I'll straighten up the chip legs with a bit of heat and a screwdriver so that it will come out cleanly, and I repeated that 3 times, once for each chip. And with a little bit of hot air on that stubborn hole, our chip is free. And then I pop a socket in. I repeated this for all 3 chips, with the one nearest the old battery damaged area of the board just needing a patch wire to ensure continuity. At first I tested with the existing chips that I'd taken out just to make sure that we had the same symptoms and I hadn't introduced any new problems, and it was the same. And then I replaced all 3 Oki chips with new ones and a slightly different part. I'll put the part number on the screen now. It's the same chip that was in the Amiga but rated at a slightly different speed. And what happens now? Well, when I test it with the new chips, it's nearly better. The noise is gone, but it's very pink, until I press down on the board near these Oki chips. So it seems we've fixed the interlace issue, and now we've just got a dodgy trace somewhere which is stopping the green signal through, which is why everything's pink. Honestly, too much green on the CRT earlier, not enough green on the 3000 now. Maybe they could have just cancelled each other out. I tracked this issue down to a trace that goes to one of our buffer chips that we've put in. So I just confirmed continuity had been lost and popped a patch wire in to fix that. I don't think that's a problem that we introduced. I think it was already there. But now Interlaced mode works perfectly. Phew. I put it through its paces for a couple of hours and it seems to be holding up just fine. So that's the monitor fixed, that's our scan doubler fixed, and we can try it out now. Well, not quite. The Amiga seemed happy as I got to putting it all back together and testing it as much as I could.
And then the monitor broke again.
Again?
The high voltage in the CRT has stopped working, and Holly and Richard have another look inside it to try and diagnose the fault.
Okay, so we had one more problem with the monitor. What was it, Holly?
We know that the B+ trimming pot has completely disintegrated.
That's this one.
Yeah.
So you've put a new one in?
Put a new one in.
So here's the new one here. New pot.
It's not great. Really not great. A lot of pin witness problems. Very thin solder, so it easily cracks, especially when you flex the board. It's only a very thin paper board. So, it's going to need a bit of touch up, especially on this connector here. That's not even working. It's not even soldered properly.
Because there's nothing sticking there. Look
Really
at it.
poor, isn't it? Yeah. Because it's not through plates, so it's only this side of the board that's going to get any solder. You're going to have to push. You're going to have to take that one off and push it through, and you actually get some.
Clearly the build quality of this monitor is not inspiring to our team. Perhaps that's a reason why these Commodore Rangers are so rare today.
We can't get the lid back on.
Yeah, you're going to have.
We'll give up. Let's just give up now. Put it in the bin.
Anyone want a monitor for an Amiga 3000?
And we must have put this thing back together 5 times, having thought we fixed it and finding that the fault was still there. With something so intermittent, we need to properly get to the bottom of it. So Holly next built a jig to break out the individual boards of the CRT so that we can test it more easily. Carefully tapping the components is a quick way to check for broken or dry joints.
Just like that. That's our DC.
Could just be a trace on the board itself.
It could be all sorts, exactly.
And then using a specialist tool, we find something.
I found there is a short circuit, and right now I'm part of the circuit to make it work. So it's hurting quite a lot. When I let go, it should go click and come out.
Okay, let go.
There you go.
Is that a recommended repair method?
No, that's not recommended.
So where do you think there is a problem?
So it's here. There's some sort of fault in the actual circuit board along here.
So we think a crack in the PCB.
Yeah,
like
or
that.
something. I'm going to power it off and have another look at it and see what.
Because you were saying to me earlier, you've got power,
Yeah, so
but then none of it gets to this side of the
got
board.
power, got B+, and for some reason it doesn't get over to this side, which is the deflection. This is
where
all,
you were
this
pushing.
Yeah, it was like, where's where I was pushing?
Okay.
Oh,
Well spotted.
ow.
Yeah, that's a much more conclusive result than we found before. So Holly gets to work on patching up the fractured trace that keeps stopping the monitor from working every time we move it and it flexes slightly. And she reflows various components based on Richard's feedback.
So, while reconstructing this monitor, the neck board, which is quite sparse but important, the drive for the guns, red, blue and green, they were originally soldered to these points here. Blue earth, blue, green, green earth, etc. And like everything else on this board, they've torn out because the soldering in the board is very paper fragile. So I'm going to put some pin headers on these. And I've already started putting crimp clamps, which should make a nice, better connection that won't keep ripping out. Okay, so what I found is these connectors here aren't a very good match with their shroud on. They sort of stand away, and they're just a little bit loose and have a tendency to pop off, especially when they get warm. So I've removed the shroud, fixed them all on, they're nice and tight. I'll get some hot glue from Richard in a minute and hot glue these in place so they can't come off. I'll just pop that one out Replace it with the bare one. That's better.
It's almost as if this monitor just wants to be allowed to fall apart and die, but we refuse to let it. This is not retro dignitas. Finally, Holly was happy with the stability of the CRT, I was happy with the Amiga, and we could put it all back together up in the cave. Yes, finally it makes it up here into the cave, and here it is for all to enjoy. I'm starting to put it through its paces with various apps. A lot of productivity apps that I didn't get to really use back in the day on my A500 because the 3000 is much more suited to it. And of course, all my favorite games. So because this was a much more involved repair than we thought it would be today, we're going to have another episode. An episode where I will take the time to reflect on my experience of using the 3000 proper for the first time in my life. Possibly upgrade it if we think it needs it, and just reflect on what the 3000 is, what it possibly should have been, how it compared to the competition, and what it meant for Commodore. So I hope you'll join me in that next episode. Please do subscribe to the channel if this is the first time of watching us. If you've just found us, welcome. And share your Amiga memories down in the comments below. Really looking forward to getting stuck into this machine and sharing what I find with you. See you in the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.